Alan Cohen. I'm extremely grateful to have you here. You've been a teacher, a mentor, a friend for me for years. Your books and your presence have had a impact on my journey. Before we dive into themes like spirituality in the 21st century, A Course in Miracles, and other things, I'd love to start with something simple but big. How do you define yourself today? Is it an author, a teacher, a coach, a
Mm.
partner?
I'm a spiritual being going through a material experience, and some of the ways that expresses is through writing, teaching, partnering, dog parenting, nature loving. So, the more I go along my journey, the more I recognize that who I am really transcends any of those roles. But then, of course, I play them out in the world and do my best to enjoy them.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. What are you working on at the moment?
I have another miracles book called Miracles Actually
Ooh,
Snapshots at the Intersection of Heaven and Earth.
nice. Do you have a particular, so you've written what, over 30 books now?
Yeah, 33.
Wow. That's a magical number, right? 33.
Yeah.
Is there one in particular that you feel is your best, or do you write them and then shelve them?
Well, everyone is my best when it comes out because it's the most exciting, it's the cutting edge of my passion. So I always think this one's gonna really be the biggest bestseller. And once in a while it is. I think a book that I wrote when I was in my mid 40s called I Had It All the Time was a watershed one for me because I've been searching and defining myself as a spiritual teacher, from a seeker for many years. And then one day I woke up and I realized if I don't have it by now, I'm never going to get it.
Mm, mm,
So I started to look within for my answers instead of to gurus or seminars or books or drugs or food. And I just began to claim what I was looking for from others. So that was a turning point book for me. I don't know if it's my best, but it meant a lot to me to write that.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that is probably, aside from A Course in Miracles Made Easy, that's probably the book of yours that really, I guess it showed me that I had it all the time.
Yeah,
It allowed me to stop being a spiritual seeker and be more of a doer.
yeah,
Yeah. I think also, though, your book, A Deep Breath of Life,
yeah, yeah,
that's a magical book that you can kind of like A Course in Miracles, just start again at the
yeah.
beginning of each year and get
Yeah,
something
thank
deeper.
you. Yeah. I like to think that each book represents a particular point of consciousness, one viewpoint on life or the world. And, it speaks to people who resonate with that point of view at that moment in time.
Mm,
So, I mean, there's some of my earlier books, I think, well, I wouldn't have said that exactly like that now. I don't believe exactly that now. But it really speaks to a population who's at that point in their own journey.
mm,
So it has eternal value, if you will, because there's an audience that matches it.
yeah. Do you find that there's a lot of recurring themes in your books or like a key point?
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of say the same thing from a different angle. It's that we are spiritual beings,
Mm,
that there's much more to life than the physical senses show us, that when we love ourselves and relax and trust and follow guidance, life works.
mm,
I think relaxation is a big theme. I wrote a book called Relax into Wealth,
mm,
but I think I could equally write a book called Relax into Relationship or Relax into Health or Relax into Career. So that the theme of ease and flow and coming from wholeness instead of seeking it, those are all consistent themes.
yeah. Yeah, I was in preparation for this, I was going through. So I have a lot of your hard copy books, but I also have the Kindle, and I have the Course in Miracles in the hardback and also Kindle. And Kindle allows you to go back and look at all your highlighted stuff with your
Uh-huh.
notes, and which is kind of fun. And I was looking at them and I thought, wow, I keep finding the same thing. So this is either his message to everyone or just what I need to get. And one of them is the concept of love over fear.
Yeah.
You know, you in the coaching room, in the miracle room, in your life coach training courses, you teach us about the fear voice versus the love voice and choosing love over fear. I think that's the most beautiful, but perhaps the most difficult.
It's the simplest. Course in Miracles says this is a very simple course,
Hmm.
which is most people don't realize that because it's so thick and there's 1,300 pages and a lot of lessons. But really, everything comes from love or fear, and every moment we have to make that choice. And the reason that it's hard is because, we have such an investment in fear,
Hmm.
and we think it's real and it works. And, we had a lady in the miracle room today, I'm sure you remember, who she was just turning 75, and she was, feeling, oh, I'm old. And the fear voice said, I'm getting old. And the love voice said, well, I'm an eternal being and I can enjoy my life as long as I'm here.
Hmm.
So the world has all kinds of ideas that run counter to truth,
Hmm.
mostly fear based. And so, we have to make a conscious, consistent effort to keep overriding that fear voice, or should I say, dissolving it with the truth of the love voice. It's a constant practice. I don't just wake up one day and say I got it. You have to keep holding today's situations up to the two voices and keep choosing, 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 choosing.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, is it the ego that's attached to that fear? Does the ego like to kind of keep us struggling?
The ego thrives on fear because it defines us as a limited body, vulnerable to all kinds of attacks and being a victim of all kinds of perpetrators. And so, without fear, the ego wouldn't know what to do. It wouldn't have. Do you remember the movie Princess Bride?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a scene where Mandy Patinkin plays. I forget his name. He's a swashbuckler, and his father was killed, and so he spends his life seeking his father's assassin,
Hmm.
and he's always practicing, practicing, practicing. And then he finally kills the guy. And as they're walking out of the castle, his assistant says to him, well, now that you've gotten revenge for your father's death, what are you going to do? And this blank look washes over his face. I said, I don't know. I've been in the revenge business for so long.
Hmm.
I don't know who I'd be without it.
Hmm.
And it's kind of a funny line, but it actually, it's very telling.
Yes.
We've lived in the fear business for so long that we really don't know what we do without it.
Hmm.
But of course, our life would be infinitely more satisfying, but you have to take a step in that direction to receive the benefits.
Now, was that conditioned on us, or is it something that the ego just kind of fed to itself? Like Don Miguel Luis in the Four Agreements says that, we were domesticated, that we were born pure, and then
Yeah.
our teachers, our pastor, our parents, our siblings, our classmates all kind of, sculpted this idea for us.
Yeah. I mean, all dysfunction is learned.
Mm,
We're not born with prejudice. We're not born with judgment. We're not born with anger. We're not born with revenge. And then there's a song from South Pacific. You have to be carefully taught.
mm,
By the time you're 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. And so, well, you live in Hawaii. So the Hawaiian tradition says that we're born as a bowl of light. And then the world puts rocks in our bowl: anger, hatred, self judgment, separation. And then eventually there's just a little trickle of light peeking through the rocks. And spiritual path is about removing those rocks so our natural inherent light can shine like it did when we were born. It's original innocence, is what it
mm,
is.
mm, beautiful, beautiful. And I do believe somewhere in the course it talks about remembering, perhaps remembering that true innocence, going back to, I mean, one of the things attracted me to Buddhism is original purity rather than original sin.
Yeah.
I was tired of carrying that weight, that guilt of original
Yeah.
sin.
Boy, you're gonna carry that weight a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, back to Zen, there's a great Zen maxim: you have no idea the weight you've been carrying until you let it go.
Mm,
It doesn't mean physical weight only, it means a psychic weight, basically. And so we all walk around, as Thoreau said, leading lives of quiet desperation, thinking, well, this is all there is and there's no way out. And there is a way out, but we have to be willing to drop the weight that's been weighing us down for so many years.
yeah, and that way out is in, correct?
Yeah, the way out is in. Well
Yeah.
stated. Yeah.
So as we were in this 21st century with, now we're communicating over Zoom, we have all this social media and whatnot. Um, there's different, I don't know if I think there's different pressures for a lot of people now to define themselves, or I don't know the right way to describe it, but I feel like there's more pressures to be something rather than to just be.
Yeah. Well, that's the story of the world, isn't it? And, social media speeds everything up. So there's more pressure to look cool and post photos of your lunch and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know if it's such a new story. I think it's just intensified.
Mm,
But, being is a lost art. And very few people know how to be fully present. Very few people know how to really listen. And so it takes a certain amount of training to follow the breadcrumbs back to who we were before we got distracted.
mm. Can you define what you mean by listening? What are we
By
listening
what?
for? By listening, what are we
Listening.
listening for? What are we listening to?
Yeah, it's a good question because I've been thinking a lot about it lately. It means being so present that you actually hear where the other person's coming from.
Mm,
Most of us are waiting to give our opinion or cite our judgment or give advice or tell our own story. And it's really a rare person who can just be with you and just feel you
mm,
and validate you and accept you. And, it's like making love in a sense where there's just a synergy of two people being together in what A Course in Miracles is called the holy instant,
mm,
the sacred, the present moment where it's always rich and it's always alive. But if your mind is elsewhere, you're not going to enjoy it.
mm.
So I personally have to practice just being and listening and being present. Um, well, I had a roommate in college, and I was studying psychology. And one day he told me something that was going on with him. I started to give him advice. He says, Alan, he says, you don't have to fix everything I say. He said, I'd appreciate if you just listen sometime. And that was a good feedback for me, because I was busy being the fixer instead of being present with them as a loving peer.
Mm, mm.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of our knee-jerk reaction is to put on the Mr. Fix-It hat or feel like we have to give some advice rather than, just acknowledging and validating that I see you're in a suffering
Yeah,
state, One of the things you taught us in the life coach training, the listening, the validation, and then the reframe,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's kind of odd to think that we have to work at being present, but we do.
Yeah.
I do. When my partner says something, I have to listen and make sure I got it before I wouldn't argue much, but before I count it was my idea. Um, you've heard me tell this, but there was a guy who was severely depressed for a long time. And after he came out of it, he said, of all the people who tried to help me, most of which were well meaning, the guy who helped me the most was a guy who came to my house every afternoon and he massaged my feet for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And a word was not spoken. And not that you have to massage everybody's feet, but it's just that sense of being with somebody
Yeah.
in their pain, in their joy, just allowing them to be who they are without trying to override them in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the ultimate validation of that
Yeah,
person's presence,
yeah,
I'm here. I'm massaging your feet when you're ready to come out of this or talk.
yeah,
I'm here. That's one of the things that as much as I love the technology that we have, I think that human touch is just so incredibly important that we can communicate more through our energy, our presence, our physical touch than we actually can through words.
yeah. It's true. I remember I went to a church service at Princeton University, and there was a famous guru at the time. His name was Sri Chinmoy from New York, and he was the guest sermon giver. And when it came time for him to come up to the pulpit, he just went like this, and he was like silent for 20 minutes.
Mm,
That was his sermon. And then he bowed and sat down. One of the best sermons I've ever heard. He just invited the whole place into a quiet presence. I mean, that was radical, but it was very healing, and it was very healing.
yeah. Yeah, I nowadays, so as you know, I also teach surfing and um sometimes, I'll say to the person, I'm going to touch your back right now. Is that okay?
Hmm.
Because in this time and age, so I don't know, what was it, the 90s when sexual harassment in the workplace started taking off, even in schools, you no longer could put your hand on somebody's shoulder or the lower
Yeah.
back just to let them
Yeah.
know I'm
Yeah.
here, you know. But I do find that, giving them a high five or, just saying, I'm going to lay my hand on your back. Now just breathe,
Yeah.
just relax, come back to it. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different time now. I mean, I grew up in the 70s when everybody was touching everybody, and nobody cared. It was fun. But times change and values change and opinions change and politics change. But most people, I believe, do enjoy a sincere, loving, non-invasive touch.
Yeah.
And I mean, the statistics of people who are on antidepressants are unbelievable. Like 43 million Americans, or some ridiculous amount. And I think one of the reasons people get depressed is that they're disconnected.
Mm,
They feel disconnected from themselves and their families and their spirit and each other. And it's like we have a lot of lonely, hurting people walking around, and they're aching for touch. And I don't just mean physical touch. I think they're aching for a heart connection, a soul connection. They want to be seen for who they are instead of being stuffed into somebody else's box.
mm.
But I think it's lovely that you want to touch people and you ask their permission. It's very respectful, of course. So it's you just have to navigate with each person uniquely, I guess, huh?
Yeah. And so what you're saying about the depression and feeling separated and looking for a way to connect. What So you have the miracle room on Thursdays, and a lot of people come there, and a lot of people have been coming there for years, and there's
Thank you.
people that
Thank you.
it's a way of polishing, polishing my sword,
Yeah. Yeah.
of learning to cut through delusion week after week, day after day, moment after moment, to so my question is, as people who want to help, as people who want to be there and say and look behind the veil and say, I see you, you're not alone. How do we how do we get the message out to some of those people that don't even know that it exists?
By living the message,
Mm,
you have to get your MBU degree, your mobile blessing unit.
mm,
Basically, by being a force field in which people feel invited to connect energetically or invited to relax. You've heard me tell this many, many years ago. It's a long time ago. I was walking through San Francisco airport, and airports are so intense and crowded and frantic. And I was running to my plane, and there was a guy walking toward me in the lobby, and he just looked so peaceful. He wasn't wearing clergy's robes. He wasn't a monk, or he was just a normal guy. But there was just something about his face and his demeanor that was soft in
mm,
comparison to the franticness of the airport. And the minute I saw him, my shoulders dropped and my solar plexus opened up, and thought, oh, maybe maybe I could relax too.
mm.
Don't know his name, never saw him again. Maybe he wasn't even a real person. Maybe he was an angel. I don't know. But in that moment, his peace was infectious, so to speak.
Mm,
And so I caught his energy without a word. And my goal, I don't always succeed at it, is to be that kind of person where other people feel relaxed in my presence and remember themselves, remember their own presence. It's healing without words. That's the highest form of healing, really.
mm, mm. So we're to be a beacon. We're not to go out there and try to save anybody.
Yeah, it's a fine line because we want to help, don't we? And we want to serve, and a lot of people are hurting, and we want to relieve suffering. I mean, people in our circle of belief do that. And there's a way to do it that's more subtle, more Zen-like, and more spacious than having to convert anybody or fix anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I deeply believe that. And I feel that if I'm going to fix anybody, I gotta, I gotta fix my relationship with myself.
Yeah,
Not fix me, but fix my relationship with me,
good point. Yeah,
you know, to, I've, like my fear voice, my old, you know, I don't know what you call it, that thing that goes around, that recurring judger. Now I've gotten to the point where when he shows up, I'm going to pass. I'm
Yeah.
going to take the next dance, not this one. you know, but I've also been able to use it as a kind of like a yardstick to see my spiritual growth. So, like, I believe some things are habitual. We've gotten so used to and so familiar with that self-judging mind, that fear voice, whatever you want to call it, that, you know, if you haven't answered it, it's going to come knocking in a few days. And if I can hear it at the door and just be like, oh, there you are. No, you're not coming in today. Then I know I've come a little farther on my spiritual path.
Yeah.
And if I recognize the feeling in that moment of letting that go, not allowing it to take over from the piece I'm experiencing washing dishes right now, um, then I know that this is the truth.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think some of us beat ourselves up because we're not enlightened yesterday and we're still having judgments and still going to fear and still getting upset. And for me, I haven't gotten rid of all those or even any of those.
Mm,
But what I have succeeded in doing is coming back to peace more quickly. In the old days, an upset would bug me for a day or a month or a year or years.
mm,
But A Course in Miracles, especially, has helped me cut the time between when I'm aware of upset and I get back to peace.
mm,
It's definitely a huge time saver and struggle saver.
mm,
So, and that the nasty voice has a vibration, and it's pressuring, and it's overbearing and guilty, and it's a very dense, dark vibration.
mm,
And I'm getting to the point where I can, regardless of the words that it's saying, I can see, well, that doesn't feel so good. That feels like a pressure trip or a guilt trip. Oh, I don't want to go there.
yeah.
And so I say, thank you very much. I'm not going to sit down to tea with you, as they say in Zen. Um, and uh, by contrast, the voice of wholeness and self-affirmation, that has a whole different frequency.
Mm,
And it's satisfying and soothing and warming and releasing and relaxing. And those are two different frequencies entirely. They can't exist in the same wavelength, really. And so a lot of the game is about sensitizing your perception to the point where you recognize that this is a heavy voice. I don't want to play with it. And that feels so much more peaceful. So let me side with the peaceful voice instead of the heavy, guilt-laden, pressuring voice.
mm, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an energy, and I actually feel it viscerally. Like
Yeah.
it hits a certain part in my head. Um, and it's so funny how quickly it wants to come up. I'll tell you a quick story. Setting up for this podcast today, so I have this, good mic. It's a heavy mic, but this boom arm is really inexpensive. And when you agreed to do the podcast, I thought, oh, I need to upgrade my boom mic. It's got to look cooler and whatever. And then I used AI and I said, should I invest or should I not? And it said, no, 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 it's working fine. So I set this thing up today about an hour ago, and it's sagging and it's not working. And my judgment voice was, why did you listen to AI? Why didn't you just get the thing? I took it apart. I wrapped electrical tape around. It wasn't holding tight. And then I realized I put this end in to the other side. I had it set up wrong the whole
I had so user error.
time.
Yeah, 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 I got it.
But I went through that whole, very quickly I went through this whole, oh, you're an idiot, and then I just went, wait, worst case scenario, I can put it on a mic stand,
Yeah,
instead of spiraling out and, identifying with that, you know, worthless or whatever.
yeah. Course in Miracles says that the ego wants to use situations for its purpose, and the spirit wants to use situations for its purpose. So when you were beating yourself up about the mic, that was the ego seeking to work that experience toward its favor,
Mm,
to interpret it according to the ego's belief system, which is always judgment and separation and guilt. Spirit's judgment is, that's kind of funny. I mixed it up. Let me try it again here.
yeah.
And so, you know, for myself, I'm asking myself, what am I using this situation for?
Mm,
How am I how am I spinning it? Am I spinning in the ego's favor or spirit's favor? And I said something to somebody the other day that I thought was a little abrupt with her, and I went on for hours. I wish I was kind of mean. I wasn't really mean, but I was a little intense. And the voice said, "Well, how long are you going to use that situation as an excuse to beat you up?
mm,
Can you just let it go?" She's a friend of mine. I'll see her again. We have a good relationship. And so, okay, I'm not. Why I let the ego use that situation for hours
mm,
in its favor? Ooh, that didn't feel so good.
yeah, yeah. So, would you mind talking about judgment?
About judgment?
Yeah. And I'll explain why I'm interested in this. So you knew Ramdas
Sure.
well. Um, Ramdas speaks to me. I've never met him physically, but I
Mhm.
meet him on the spiritual plane all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, and over and over again in his lectures and his books, he talks about, his guru saying, Ramdas, love everyone, serve everyone. And he, openly and honestly talks about how he just hated everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I keep hearing that, love everybody. But I find myself judging people, and then I judge myself. Um, for example, um, I'm in the supermarket and I see someone who's unhealthy. They've got the bandages around their legs, their ankles for perhaps diabetes or gout or whatever. And I look at them and and the skin is all dry and I look and I'm like, oh, poor thing. First judgment. Then I think, you know, yeah, I have something to offer you, which is me imposing on you. Third, I look in their shopping cart and I see the food choices they're making.
Yeah.
And that's my final judgment. And then, my ego wants to spin out on myself, just like you said with your friend.
Yeah. That's a good question, isn't it? I do that at the beach. I judge bodies.
Mm,
Oh, that person has a great body. Ooh, person, that's a that's a great body. And there's a difference, Mark, that I see between judgment and discernment.
mm,
For example, we might judge people for eating not healthy food, but we might want to discern to eat healthy food without emotion attached to it. Judgment is discernment overlaid with emotion.
mm,
So Course in Miracles, speaking of people who are ill, I mean, Course in Miracles says that all illness is a call for love. All meanness is a call for love. So if you see somebody who doesn't look healthy, the best interpretation is that person obviously needs some love. Not that you're feeling sorry for them or go make nice to them, but they're calling for love. I mean, what what other game is there in town?
Yeah.
And so but you made another good point that judging yourself for judging doesn't help anybody because it's just another judgment overlay.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, well, I guess I judge that person. All right, well, okay, I'd rather not do that, but I don't need to beat myself up for it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And you said something there uh, about them crying out for love. And that really hit me. And I had an aha moment around it. And that maybe I can, every time I feel that, what ego wants to call judgment, I can just, use one of the lines of Ho'oponopono, I love you,
Yeah.
and just send energetic love, you know, and
Yeah.
maybe they'll turn and ask for help.
We're all in this together.
Mm,
And, we all have our element of suffering in our lives.
mm,
There's an Irish poet who said, be gentle with everybody because everybody's fighting it hard in a battle. And it's true. So we're all trying to figure it out. We're all stuck in bodies. We're all quite not quite sure what we're doing here. And so it really helps me to regard somebody else who's a brother or sister on the same path as me, dealing with planet Earth
mm,
and trying to find out how to find healing and well-being.
mm,
And judgment isn't in the toolkit for how that healing happens.
mm,
you know, I was at there's a little restaurant near the beach, and there were some tourists there one day. I might have said this in the Miracle Room, and they were sitting on a picnic table where other people have to eat, putting their butts on it where people are sitting, and they were spraying toxic sunscreen all over the place, and they were smoking, and they had tattoos that I personally did not find appealing, and I had all kinds of like why do these gross people have to come and ruin my island? That was the ego said. I thought, well, is there another way of looking at this? Well, the other way is, well, these people came to this island maybe for healing. They were drawn to a remote island. There's not a lot of action here in Kauai, and they're going to go swimming. They're going to climb, see waterfalls. Who knows what they're going to do? But they came for healing. So maybe I could suspend my judgment. I like that phrase.
mm,
Just suspend my judgment for a moment. Just put it aside. You sit there for a moment if you don't mind, and reframe them as people who came from New York City or wherever they came um, to be healed by the natural beauty of the island of Kauai.
mm.
And so, okay, that felt a lot better.
Yes. Yeah. So could that judgment come from our evolution into this 21st century where before that judgment may have served a survival place where we're assessing those people as safe or dangerous,
Yeah.
where we no longer have to worry about that unless it's a certain time of day on a certain street, you know, or whatever. But now we've allowed the ego to take over in that other way, and maybe create some sort of yardstick. If I judge them for being out of shape, maybe that means I'm in better shape.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of spins on this. Yeah. One form of judgment is to make somebody else wrong so you can be right.
Hmm.
or make somebody inferior so you can feel superior. But what the ego does not reveal is that the only reason you need to make them inferior is because you feel inferior.
Mm,
Bullies are the most insecure people on the planet. Somebody who bullies somebody else has a horrible self image.
mm,
Somebody who knows their power does not need to overpower or beat anybody else up.
mm,
So I forget how we got onto this, but it's that sense of not enoughness and weakness and vulnerability that makes us in a constant state of defense and attack, which are really kind of the same thing.
mm,
So and that's the jungle. That's the alligator part of our brain. We have a reptile brain and a neocortex. The old brain is the think alligator. Alligators are not cuddly, compassionate creatures, as far as I can tell. And then we have another brain that grew over it that scientists don't really know exactly how it happened, but it's another brain called the neocortex, which is responsible for compassion and arts and self-expression and connection. And so, one way to look at it is we're vacillating between which brain we'll use.
mm,
And unfortunately, the old brain takes over more than is helpful, but we're learning.
mm. Back to loving everyone and the love voice over the fear voice. Is it possible? Like, I think what I'm kind of struggling with now is I think I can love someone without actually liking them. Like we have to live in this world with other people. And when we have jobs,
Yeah.
we're forced to interact with people that we don't necessarily
Yeah.
like, and I think I get hung up in that, well, I'm supposed to love you, but I don't like you.
Yeah. That's agape. It's universal spiritual love as opposed to romantic or a lot of what we call love is not really love. It's an alliance.
Mm,
It's I love you because of what I can get from you.
mm,
And then when you quit giving me what I want, I don't love you anymore. It's a very shallow alligator type of love. And really, a spiritual path is about, ascending to a higher frequency, a higher octave of love. We can love people who are otherwise seemingly unlovable. And it's a big task, but Jesus did it,
mm.
forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. I mean, and if he can do it, after he's been strung up on the cross, I can do it to somebody who cuts me off in traffic. I mean, it seems pretty trivial after that.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. Yeah, I've told you about how I've been using the love voice over the fear voice while teaching surfing. Um, would you mind just explaining for the listeners what those two voices are and how they can use them?
Yeah. The Course in Miracles, and not just the Course, but lots of teachings say there's really only two human emotions. One is fear and one is love. Love is natural, fear is not.
Mm,
And love is our right state of mind, fear is an aberration. And so every thought, every feeling, every word, every action proceeds from one or the other. When you're loving, you can't be afraid. When you're afraid, you can't be loving. You can tap into love if you try it, but the two are mutually exclusive. So we have to be very vigilant to stay in what A Course in Miracles calls our right mind.
mm,
Right mindedness and wrong mind. Right mindedness means we're thinking with God, which is visionary, seeing wholeness, seeing perfection, seeing well-being, seeing preciousness. And wrong mind is all about judgment and fear and survival and attack. And so as you see in the miracle room, very often I'll ask people, what does the voice of fear say? Well, it says that if I ever meet a man again, it's going to be another disaster like my marriage that ended in divorce. Thank you. What does the voice of love say? Well, I've grown since that marriage, and I wouldn't make the same mistakes. And I'd like to think there's a good guy out there that I can trust. And so if I open my heart, I might be able to have a kind of relationship I really want.
Mm,
Okay, which voice feels better? And they always laugh at that point because the difference is night and day. And so it's constantly testing which voice we're coming from at a given moment. And if we find ourselves in the fear voice, ask ourselves, what would the love voice say by contrast? It doesn't have to be love, but it could be trust or vision or confidence or well-being. There's different words for the same thing. But all those empowering feelings spring from one source, and all those disempowering feelings spring from another source. And so we have to keep checking ourselves out as to which source we're bowing to, you might say.
mm. And it's quite amazing how such a simple two-question exercise can really shift your emotional well-being. I mean, every time you do it in the miracle room, you see the person's face change,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and you can see shoulders drop, you can see tension relieved. Um, I often find a lot of times I'll ask them, so, they're like, oh, I'm scared. I'm like, okay, what are you scared of? And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, well, if you did know, what would it be? Well, I guess this.
Yeah.
But they're carrying around fears they don't even know why, you know? So you said earlier that it's a constant practice. We're constantly using the exercises, the tools, the whatever we want to call them, teachings to, polish the mirror, so to speak. There's a there's a sense of faith and a sense of knowing involved in that. You're an accomplished author. I've heard you talk to people, even possibly to me as well, about if it's really what you want to do, spirit will show the way. Do it, and the publisher or the whatever is going to show up. I believe that, Alan, to a certain extent. There's another part of me that feels that I have to have what Joe Rogan calls FU money.
What do you call it?
FU money.
FU money?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
That I have just enough money set aside that I can say, F it, I'm going all in on this project,
I see.
whether it works or doesn't work.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like I believe, I do believe in the teachings, but there's a hook somewhere that probably doesn't trust myself on that tightrope to not have a safety net under me or someone in the corner, going, you can do it. You can do it.
We should evaluate all of our activities by the energy that's motivating them. So it's really fine to have a safety net. I mean, a lot of people you've seen in the coaching programs, well, should I quit my job and coach? But I have to put food on the table for my family. So I think I'd rather keep my job and coach on weekends.
Mm,
Well, that's fine, because you're coming, it's a rational, healthy, empowered decision.
mm,
You get into trouble though when you start acting from fear. Like if, yeah, I better get my safety net. Ooh,
mm,
what if this happens? And that's going to sabotage your efforts because
mm,
You started from a false premise.
mm.
You started from a fear-based premise that bad things are going to happen if I don't do this.
Beautiful.
And so, there's a difference between saving for a rainy day because you're afraid it's going to rain and it's going to rain, or just saving, oh, I think it'd be nice to have this cushion. And it feels like a healthy financial decision. So it's kind of the same thing we've been talking about, that is the fear voice directing your activity or is the trust voice directing your activity? And the form of the activity may not look that much different in either result,
Mm,
but the energy behind it is going to determine the ultimate result.
mm,
Like women who get married because they're hitting 40 and they're frantic, they're not going to have a baby. And usually those marriages fail because it was a desperation motivated decision.
mm,
So you could also get married out of love and joy and choice, but desperation is almost a guarantee that it's going to be sabotaged somehow.
mm. Agreed. Agreed. Well, I guess a lot of us have this, what we should be doing. Um, you talked about being a spiritual being and being, and you talked about the man massaging the other man's feet and that presence, that being. I feel sometimes as a spiritual being walking through this human life that I'm very comfortable at times being, but then there's sometimes a societal pressure that I have to be doing more with
Yeah.
this being. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I have to have a position, but no, helping someone overcome a fear of the ocean, holding a door open for somebody, saying hello to Warren who walks by every day, that is enough.
Yeah. Well, the whole energy of that first voice was pressure. I mean, I should be doing more. A good person would do this. A spiritual person would do this. And once again, it's ego masquerading as spirit.
Mm,
Well, this ain't Christianity. The devil quotes scripture, which means that the fear voice often masquerades as the love voice,
mm,
but it's a cheap costume because when you peel the costume away, there's, there's ick underneath. But like you said, well, let me say hi to the guy and let me help that person cross the street. Well, that's just a nice natural flow of your natural state of wanting to be helpful. We want to be helpful. That's our nature.
mm,
And there's a difference between being helpful because an opportunity presents itself and thinking, I should do more. I'm not doing it. I must do more. That's ego.
mm. What does it say in ACIM? Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists.
What's that?
Nothing real can
Yeah.
be threatened. Nothing
Yeah.
unreal
Yeah. Yeah. That's
exists.
first line of A Course in Miracles, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that pains me, um, and it actually does pain me. I can say that I get a physical response when I see people stuck. This is judgment, isn't it? When I see people stuck in their
Yeah.
melodrama, you
Yeah.
know, where I just want to shake them and, snap out of it. Or that Bob Newhart thing you said, stop it.
I know. I know how to feel. Like, come on, let's just get it.
Yeah. But I guess we have to trust that time is not linear, that we all wake up when we're ready.
Yeah. Everybody's on their own learning curve. You've heard me tell about a guy who was in one of my early groups. It was a group that met every week for a year. And he was in this toxic, nasty relationship. And he came in the first week, oh, I met this fantastic woman. We had great sex. Woohoo. Next week, oh, we had a big fight. Next week, we had sex again. Oh, we broke up. We bought a condo together. We sold. It was like this constant drama.
Mm,
And the group was very compassionate. They tried to help him with it, but it was the same. Well, no matter what we said, it was the same roller coaster. So after a while, people just kind of gave up,
mm,
and he went on with his life. And they kept saying, this is a toxic relationship. You should get out of it. Yeah, yeah, I know, no, but he didn't. I met him about a year later. How you doing, bud? Oh, he says, I had the most amazing insight on. God gave me a revelation. He says, that was a really toxic relationship, and God told me how to get out. And I thought, what the hell do you think we were telling you for 6 months? But he had to get it when he got it in his own way.
yeah,
We could not, you can't pull the flower, the petals of a flower open.
yeah,
But if you shine sunlight on it and water it and put some nice fertilizer in the ground, the flower will bloom and blossom in its own right time. And every flower blooms in a different month, all kinds of different, every flower has its season. And it's the same way with people, we're all going to get it eventually, like you said, but, each in their own right timing. You can't force it.
yeah. There's that section in healing in A Course in Miracles where they said that the person will heal when they realize that there's no no more benefit to
Right,
the
right.
illness or the pain,
Exactly. Yeah, well stated.
you know. And what you were saying there about the flower reminds me of, Ram Dass and Be Here Now talks about the snake shedding its skin.
Right,
You can't
right.
force it off. It has to do it
Yeah.
at its own, you know. So I guess patience is incredibly important. Yeah.
We have to grow out of our dysfunctions. You can't beat them off. It's like the Course in Miracles says, do not fight the ego.
Mm,
And in my experience, that when I get to a point where I realize there's more to life than the dysfunction that I've been valuing, then that becomes interesting. And the light becomes more attractive than the darkness, and the darkness gets boring. Like, why would I want to do that anymore? Like, no, I don't. It feels like a child's suit of clothes that doesn't fit me anymore. I outgrew that. Why would I want to put my 10-year-old jacket on when I'm now older?
mm,
And so it takes patience. It takes patience and compassion to recognize that we're growing out of our problems rather than, vanquishing them with a sword.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of an oddball question, and it's kind of an aside, but did did you have an experience that you can say was like a spiritual awakening? Um, how do I find myself personally looking for that burning bush.
Yeah.
But I mean, you often say in the miracle room, well, how many signs do you need? There's all little, micro enlightenments taking place here and there. And there's, my mirror is getting more and more polished, but, you know, I still want I still want to see that burning bush. I want,
Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? Well, the fact that you know it's there and you ardently wish to see it means that on some level you're already a match to it,
Mm,
that it's in you. Some people don't even know there's a burning bush. They don't even care about finding it. They'd rather just, go to the football game. And so my experience, Mark, is that those aha moments come spontaneously.
mm,
The best things that have ever happened to me just happened. I mean, I made an effort, but the really good stuff was given by grace. That's my experience.
Mm,
And my part is to purify, 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 do my meditation, do my yoga, stay in nature, do my Course in Miracles, try to be kind, do stuff that I know benefits my spiritual practice, which makes me an open receiver for the big ahas.
mm,
Never been able to squeeze an aha out. But when I relax and do my practices, it puts me in alignment with the ahas, so they come naturally and they're kind of metered out in their own right timing and way.
mm. Well stated. What does your daily practice look like?
I like to get up early. I do my prayers and meditation. I do my Course in Miracles. I do some yoga, and then I get outside.
Mm,
I enough head stuff. I have to touch some plants. I have to go to the beach. Well, you know what surfing's all about. I don't surf, but the experience of.
mm,
Did I tell you the story about the surfer I met at this gas station? I think I did. It's in my new book. So Dee and I were going out for dinner one night, and there's a surfer kid on the other side of the pumps, and he says, "Hey man, nice shirt." So I said, "Yeah, thanks. Yeah, what's going on?" And I saw a couple surfboards in the back, and I said, "What do you like to surf?" You tell me local break. Then he says, "I love to surf because it reminds me I'm in the presence of a power greater than myself."
mm,
I thought, whoa. And I didn't expect to have a metaphysical conversation with this kid at the gas station. And it showed me that we're all yearning for and capable of being in the presence of some kind of higher power.
mm,
And for a lot of people, that's what surfing is. It's a really cool sport. I mean, you really have to be, and a lot more better than I do, but you have to be in tune and listen and feel and flow. And I thought, okay. But anyway, back to me. I like to do stuff outside because it grounds me. I love to touch green things. I love to work with the earth. And so those are my main spiritual practices.
mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here, being there. Um, like I said before, you're a real inspiration. One of the things I don't know if I ever told you that I really love about you is you tell your stories of your shortcomings, about how you're tested each day and you
Yeah.
learn, and it makes you more human
Yeah.
and more. I'm attracted to those types of teachers. Ram Dass was the same way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, what you said earlier with the Christian saying of the devil quotes scripture, those kind of in your face people really, I don't know, they scare me away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Rightfully so.
you know. So
Yeah.
thank you for
And
that.
yeah. And as we said, we're all in this together. We're all dealing with our humanity and also reaching for our divinity. And one of my favorite quotes is from George Eliot, the novelist, who said, "What are we here for except to make each other's lives easier?"
Mm,
And so I like the vision of us climbing a mountain together, holding hands. And then if one of us starts to falter, the group strength lifts that person. And tomorrow I might falter and you might lift me.
mm,
And so I know that's what you're all about. I have tremendous respect for the work you're doing. You're a great coach and you're really working to help people. And I know you incorporate spiritual teachings with your surfing teaching and you have a beautiful, calm, mellow, soothing voice. So I'm really glad you're doing this podcast. I'm really happy to be on it with you. It's a great service to humanity.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
Okay.
Take
Well,
care.
good to see you and carry on. I hope this podcast goes out and touches lots of people. It will, and more good stuff to come. Okay.
Aloha.
Thank you, Mark. Have a
Take care.
great day.
Bye bye.